Welcome to Topics Off the Top, where I discuss topics from the graffiti world right off the top of my head. And while I have a bunch of topics lined up for future episodes, if there is something that you guys want me to speak on, just drop it in a comment. But let's get into topic one. And let's see what topic one is going to be. Best things about San Francisco graffiti in the 90s. The number of writers. The first time I ever tagged was in 1996 when I hit up the bathroom at Holly Park. And from that moment onward, I came to know dozens of writers in the city. And as I've documented in other videos, there would be these waves of graffiti in San Francisco that would sweep people up. And folks that never thought about tagging suddenly were writing, and there would be dozens of them at a time. And really all it would take for some of these people is just knowing a writer, knowing a bunch of writers, and they would find themselves writing along with all their friends. And in today's times, when I hear people say that they don't know anybody else that writes, I understand for some of them, maybe that's a good thing, but I understand for others, it's probably a bad thing. And knowing all these different writers, knowing all these different people at different schools, in different neighborhoods, definitely was one of the best things about tagging in the 90s in San Francisco. We all had a piece of that social fabric, and we all had something that tied us into a larger culture. And for many of us, we were going through a lot of really whack stuff. We had experienced trauma, we had experienced abuse, but this was something we all belonged to, and we found comfort and a connection in tagging. And this correlated to all the graff that you would see in the streets, and you would see a lot of things that would inspire you, that would make you want to go out there and get up more and get up better. And it didn't seem like there were too many places in the city that you could go to that didn't either have taggers or graffiti visible. And every one of those things just drew us further into this culture, drew us further into this thing that we loved, and we shared it with the people that we cared about. And to be honest with you guys, there's just something to be said about getting on a bus 5 deep, 10 deep, everybody hitting up all at once, everybody moving in the same collective direction. That still just warms my heart thinking about it 25 odd years later. And with all these people in the mix, there was a great diversity in styles, there was a great diversity of people that were involved, and you got to see a lot of different things, and you got to ponder a lot of different things and be inspired by a lot of different things just due to the amount of people that were in the mix when I was active. I can also say San Francisco having the number of writers that it did also correlates to the amount of stories I have about writers and tagging from that time. And if you guys have further questions about San Francisco's graff scene, drop me a comment and I'll address them here. But let's get into topic 2. All right, here we go. Doug's store in Daly City. In 8th grade, I found out that there was a graff store out in Daly City that would sell to us, and we could pretty much go out there and get anything we wanted. I do have to add though, it was kind of a pain to get out there, and getting out there meant having to cut school, which I've talked about in a previous episode of Topics Off the Top because I got caught trying to go out to this store. This store was located in the top of the hill section, just right over the city line, and the 14 Mission would take you out there. And that was a pretty long bus ride. There were definitely some dangers. There were some things that you can encounter just at Silver and Mission, Geneva and Mission, all along that route to get out to that store. And no matter what happened trying to get out there, including getting busted trying to go out there, it was always worth it to me to shoot out to that store. And the first time I ever copped a Pilot, the first time I ever copped a SG or an Ultra was from that graff store out in Daly City. And when we'd pull up there, they know that we were graffiti writers. They wouldn't ask us any questions. They would just sell us whatever we were looking for. The only problem was sometimes you go all the way out there with something in mind, like copping an SG, especially an SG in particular colors, and they just didn't have it. And without cell phones, there was really no way to call them up other than to find a payphone somewhere around Everett and hit these fools up and have their number committed to memory or written down somewhere. But anytime I went out there, I left the store happy, I left the store satisfied, no matter what I copped. And over the years, I thought about this store a lot. I have a lot of good memories of going out there, but I never knew who owned the place. But one day I was on Instagram in the comments of the video, and somebody talked about the store. And I asked him, I was like, hey, what's up? Was that store out at top of the hill? And the guy said, yeah, that store was owned by Doug. And Doug is a very legendary figure in graff in the Bay Area, and he's originally from Daly City. And all these years later, I had absolutely no idea that a fellow graff writer owned this spot. And I was happy to know that I was giving my money back to the graffiti community instead of to a corporation or a hardware store or someone that didn't really want us there. And while some people might question the morality of selling markers to children, I can say, as a 13, 14-year-old, there was all kinds of stuff I could buy at that time that was a hell of a lot more harmful to me than a marker, and some of it was available at corner stores. And shout out the very legendary Doug. If you guys want to hear his perspective on graff and just the history of graff in San Francisco and the Bay Area, check out Piece by Piece. But let's get into topic 3. We've had some cool topics so far, but let's see what this third one holds for us. Worst things about San Francisco graffiti in the 90s. Scandalous writers. By definition, you can say all writers are scandalous writers because we go out there and we tag on stuff in public. And the general public looks at us as being pretty scandalous for doing this, but more so what I'm talking about is writers being scandalous towards each other. And this could take on a lot of forms. This could take on the form of writers informing on each other, writers crossing each other out and starting drama and jumping each other for no reason or just invented reasons. But more often than not, the most scandalous thing I saw writers doing was snaking each other for markers and robbing each other. And people that you've been cool with for a very long time would wait for an opportunity just to snake you for something. And I got snaked a couple of times for markers, including one time from somebody I thought I was pretty cool with. I had an SG and the guy asked me if he could borrow it, and because we were cool, I said absolutely. And this fool had my marker for like 1 or 2 weeks, and after a couple of weeks of asking him, he pretty much told me, if you want this thing back, you're gonna have to take it off me. I hadn't gotten to the place in my life where I would just sock somebody for something like this without thinking. And more than anything else, I was just disappointed, and I was like, damn, like I was cool with this dude, and he busted a move like this on me. You know what? He can keep the marker. And for the next couple of months that we went to school together, this dude and I were not cool, and I'm sure I lost some respect in his eyes for not just trying to punch him in the face and take a marker back. But maybe 6 months after all this happened, I went through the worst thing in my life that I'd ever been through. And by the time I saw this dude again, I was definitely in the mode of just socking people without thinking. And when I saw this dude, he had gained like 50 or 60 pounds. Like this dude used to be really fly. Like he always had his hair together, all his clothes together, but he had a messed up kind of misshapen afro that was really outgrown. And he had this weird look on his face. And I saw this dude and I was like, damn, there goes so-and-so. And a little bit of anger started building up in me. But this dude stepped to me before anything could happen, and he told me about all the problems he was having. He told me he just suddenly stopped talking for like 6 months, he stopped eating, and I believe he had to be committed. In the 6 months that I had seen him, I grew about 6 or 7 inches, and I don't know if this dude told me all this stuff because he was feeling vulnerable and he was trying to stop an kicking that was likely. But I think more than anything else, I was always cool to the dude and I was always caring, and maybe he felt like he could talk to me about this stuff because I gave a damn. And it made me realize this dude had been going through some pretty whack stuff to end up this depressed to where he wasn't talking, leaving the bed, or even eating. And a lot of scandalous behavior in graffiti writers comes from these issues that we face outside of graff. And I've definitely been through my own set of issues that had me acting in a pretty whack way, so I can understand where he was coming from and some of the other people I knew that were very scandalous. And this story that I told is far from the only story about scandalous writers that I have, so I'm going to re-explore this topic in the future. But let's get into topic 4. And here we go, let's see what we have. Gray. My favorite piece that I've ever seen in my life was done by Gray in 1998. I did a video about this on TikTok, but for you guys that haven't seen it, Gray did a piece in 1998 on Haight Street where he hit up on a billboard and somehow he brought up a shopping cart full of spray cans and attached that thing to the billboard. And I remember the day that I saw that, it just floored me. And I was like, how the hell did he get up there? How the hell did he get that shopping cart up there? And how is this dude able to hit a dope piece on top of everything else? And the answer to that is, he was one of the most talented graffiti writers in San Francisco at that time. I believe he said it was skateboarding that brought him to the city, like a lot of other people, and he was in the punk rock scene during that time. I was also in the punk rock scene at the same time, so I might have seen him at shows or just crossed paths with him and not even known that that's who he was. But I saw evidence of his work all over San Francisco, and it was pieces mostly. I didn't see him running with a lot of hand styles, but he would be up in very dope locations with dope pieces. And in like 1997, 1998, I discovered AOL's graffiti chat room. And there were some well-known writers and some well-known personalities that are in that chat room, including Josh D, who ran the Hi-Fi Art website and currently owns the Rebel 8 clothing brand. And I talked to somebody in that chat room who said that they were Gray, but who knows if this was actually the case or not. But this person that was claiming to be Gray said that they had heard of me. And I was like, damn, you heard of me? Like, what did you hear? And this person told me, I heard you're down, you're super down for graff, but I also heard you're young as hell. And I got to talk to this person who I believe to be Gray for about 15 or 20 minutes, and it's still one of my best graffiti memories that I've ever had. And Gray's still very active. He's very active on Instagram, and sometimes he'll just go live, and you can see him hitting up very dope pieces in a short amount of time. He did a very interesting interview recently where he just talked about his struggles with addiction, and just his mind frame for tagging and just for life. And considering all the people that we've lost, especially in San Francisco over the last couple years that were very dope and well-known writers, I'm very happy to say that Gray is over a year sober. He's very committed to continuing his sobriety, to living his life, staying alive, and putting art out there.